Hello everyone. Today we are going to be making something called a frottage. It's a fancy word, fancy French word that basically means a rubbing. Many of you may have done something like this before. If you've ever been to Henry Ford Museum, they have little stations all around in there that allow you to lay a piece of paper down and take a crayon and make a rubbing. So today we're going to create one of our own, and there's so many different ways to do it. So I have collected around my house. I went on a texture hunt. Remember, texture is something that we can feel with our hands, right? So I tried to grab some things that look like they would show a texture. I even found some of these little numbers and letters that were cut out. I cut out some paper. I had some extra paper. Some of it is thin and some of it is thick, and so what I'm going to show you first is just kind of what it's going to look like, right? So if I lay these down, I'm not even going to glue these. I'm just going to kind of lay them down. Let's see. I can overlap pieces. I'm going to put that one, I'll put that one right there. I'm going to see how it works without gluing it, but I do have some glued examples to show you. So for this, I cut out a heart, and then I cut out a smaller heart. Let me move these. I'm going to put the heart up here. I'm going to throw some letters in there. I also found this paper, right? I can kind of feel that there's a texture on there. We'll see if that texture shows up. And this paper towel, again, it looks like it has a texture, but we'll see. I'm going to overlap that. Okay, so all I need to do now is grab myself, I'm going to cut myself a little piece of practice paper just to kind of see how this is going to look. Now, for something like this, it's important that we have a crayon, right, that does not have the paper on it. And I'll show you why in a moment. Also, it doesn't matter what color the things on your we call this a plate, on your plate, right? And I'm just going to lay this down. I have my crayon, and I'm not going to use my crayon like I would if I were coloring. I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to just pinch this crayon, kind of like this. And when I use the crayon, I'm going to push the crayon around on the paper. I'm not going to roll it. I'm going to push it. But when I do that, I'm going to, especially because I didn't glue this down, I'm going to take my crayon. I have to hold the paper down, because if the paper moves, well, if the paper moves, it'll just look different. So as you can see, as I push the crayon across the paper, you can see what's underneath it. Sometimes I like to see, now I'm going to hold the paper down. I move my hand. I'm going to hold the paper down. I'm always kind of pushing away from the hand that's holding the paper. That way I can't go back and forth, because it'll grab that paper. Oh, look at that heart. Nice layered heart, just like that. Now I might want to go back in and kind of change the direction of my crayon just to make sure, and push down real hard on some places. Look, there's that paper towel. It does actually kind of show through. And I might want to get all this on here. Sometimes if I'm feeling fancy, after I do the crayon rubbing, I might go back in with some watercolors on top of the crayon. And that creates a crayon resist. Right? Look at that. That's interesting. Right? So there's an example of a rubbing with just some random objects and papers that I found around my house, and that's kind of fun. But earlier, before we started the video, I made a couple plates. Okay, that very first image that you saw, I'll show you that one in a moment, but I made a plate for that. And I also made a plate just out of paper that I cut, and it may be difficult for you to see because it's got like drawings and stuff all over the paper. That, again, doesn't matter, because it's not going to show through. So this one is a fish in the ocean. So instead of using black, I'm gonna go ahead and try using blue. So I'm gonna dice dark blue. Okay, so I'm gonna hold it down with my hand and I am going to push my crayon right across. Pushing my crayon right across. There we go. We got a little palm tree. Now I can't really see the edge of that island, so I can kind of come back and I'm holding it really super steady here, so I can kind of go back and forth, but right, I can, if I'm holding it steady, I can pull the crayon back towards me. I kind of want to be able to see the fish's eye. Right, I just cut out some shapes, glued them down onto my paper. All right, here we go. Ooh. This is something that you kind of have to use your patience for, right? Because you got to hold that paper down. Make sure you're not moving too fast. There's my sun. I layered, right? So I made a layer, and then I made a little round piece, and then I made even more little pieces on top to make his happy sun smile, right? And sometimes I like to just go right off the edge. Ooh, just like that. That's a little tougher over there. All right, look at that. Now, one of the things you might notice is, right, that my paper is a little stuck to my plate. And I used a glue stick to just kind of glue all those little pieces down, but it's a good idea to make sure that your glue stick is nice and dry before you put your paper down on top of it. So for my final example, now I can't find my scissors. For my final example, I'm gonna go ahead and do the plate that I did the first time. I'm using recycled paper because that's something that I like to do when I can. Okay, so this plate, this is the plate that I used to make this. And I kind of wanted it to look like little buildings. I found this nice little cutout flower shape in my studio. Used a little piece of paper towel for the cloud, little random flower bits and doodads and just things that I found in my studio. So now I'm gonna go ahead and use that black for this one. My paper's a little small, but that's okay too. So I'm gonna use this black and I am going to, ooh, you can really see the cloud on that one. See the paper towel. Right, I'm gonna go in some different directions, make sure that I can see all those, ooh, shapes. This one's a little tall. I have to be a little careful of that one. Now I'm gonna hold it, ooh, and push this over here. I'm pushing it away from my hand. I can move my hand over here, hold it down. Get those little flowers on the bottom. All in there. Now you can use whatever color you like, but a darker color will probably show up a little better than a lighter one will. There we go. Now, if you decide, right, you do your little rubbing, your frottage, that you would like to add some color, there's really no reason why at this point you can't go back in, right, and add some color into your finished rubbing, just to make it look a little more interesting. And that is basically it for this week. We are going to, I'm not going to say that you have to make buildings or a seascape, right? You could make a design, a pattern. This is really very much about experimentation and about having an experience and seeing what these materials will do when you use them in this particular way. So you're gonna have some fun going around the house, finding things that you think might create some lovely texture. Make sure that you get permission from your grown-ups before you go gluing things down on your paper. Make sure that it's something that you're allowed to use, and then have some fun. And I cannot wait to see what you come up with.